Hello, my name is Cecilia Norton. I'm currently a fourth grade teacher and I'm a student at Grand Canyon University getting a master's in reading with an emphasis on elementary education. Today I would like to talk to you about the components of reading and also give you some instructional strategies and resources that you can use in reading. The first of the 5 components is that you should teach essential skills and strategies. To be an effective classroom teacher, you must teach phonemic awareness, phonics, and word study explicitly. Students must learn to associate letters with sounds. Strategies are routines taught to accomplish this goal. Students can be taught strategies to decode unknown words. This is also important when they are writing. It's important for them to know how to decode a word so then they can decode it and know how to spell it. The next component is differentiated instruction. It's important that you differentiate instruction and meet the students at where they are. A classroom today could have any number of levels of students. You might have struggling readers, you might have advanced readers, you might have students with disabilities, and you might also have ELL students. So it's important that you differentiate your instruction so that each learner can have the most success. We'll talk more about a few strategies about that in just a little bit. The next component is explicit and systematic instruction. Students need to know what they are learning and not just have to guess at what they're learning. It's important that you open your lesson with the objective, and you also might want to refer back to prior knowledge that they know on this subject, possibly something they learned in the previous year or something that might connect to it from the prior lesson. This helps the student better understand what they're learning. The fourth component is to provide opportunities to apply the learned skills and strategies so that students will know how to use them. So it's important that you give students the opportunity to use the skills that they're learning. This is especially important in writing. You want to model how the students should write, and then you want to give the students time to practice that strategy. Give them many opportunities. The final component is critical content. Should be monitored for progress and retaught as needed. In other words, you need to monitor the students, see how they're doing with their skills, and if the subject needs to be retaught, then you should reteach it, but possibly just to a small group if others are successful with that strategy or that skill. Now I'm going to talk about some strategies for each component. For teaching essential skills, a good strategy is to introduce letters and sounds at a faster rate with planned cycles of reviewing that allows for slow learners to develop automatic letter retrieval, while students who learn quicker can use their knowledge for decoding and spelling. A strategy for differentiated instruction is to offer choices of answers for struggling students, rather than just asking them for the answer. This gives them an opportunity to try and recall what the answer might be and having those choices to choose from instead of just trying to have to recall the answer itself. Another opportunity or strategy for differentiated instruction would also be a choice board, so that they could choose the way they want to show that they have mastered that skill. A strategy for explicit instruction is to break down or chunk complex material. This makes it more manageable, and it also allows students to master the first chunk before moving on to the next chunk. A strategy for opportunities to apply the learned skill. An example of this might be with narrative writing. Once students have learned how to do that narrative writing, you can let them use that skill in other subjects, such as social studies. An example of that might be, currently we are studying the colonies, and once my students have learned how to do narrative writing, then I could have them write a narrative from the perspective of a colonist. The final strategy that I have for you is when critical content should be monitored and retaught as needed. A good way to monitor for reading is using the dibbles. It's a great way to monitor letter sounds, nonsense words, and fluency. And all of these are very important in reading and in improving reading comprehension. It's important to assess and progress monitor your students. And I have 2 strategies to help you with that. The first one is that I keep a notebook with each of my students' assessments in it. We currently do the NESGRA, the NSGRA, and each time we do a new assessment, I place that in the notebook with the students' other assessments. I also think that it's a great way to encourage students to do well on their assessments by graphing their results. This has been especially helpful for me when we are doing the dibbles with the reading fluency. The students love to try and beat their time prior, and if you graph those results, then they can see what they did in the prior test, and they can try to beat it. The last thing first of all, I'm going to tell you about this online program that I use. It's called Max Scholar. Max Scholar is a great program. It mirrors the reading strategies in Orton Gillum, and it's a great program for phonics. My students have shown so much growth in Max Scholar. The only downside to it is that it is a paid program. But if you can convince your district to buy it for either the district, your school, or the class, I can guarantee you that your students will benefit from it. I'd like to close this video by talking about ways that the literacy specialists can support teachers and students. One of the things that the literacy specialist can do is provide PLCs for the teacher. This is a time where the specialist can give strategies to the teacher. They can help them with their assessments if they're struggling with anything. And they can also give new ideas to the teacher and talk about any new information that has come out with reading. Another good thing that they can do is they can actually go into the classroom and help the teacher with that testing. Especially for new teachers, this is important because they might not have been trained on the particular assessment that your school is using. And a final way that the literacy specialist can help a teacher is through observations and then ideas from those observations. Possibly something they could change, or maybe it's a new idea that might help the students in that classroom. That's all I have to share with you today, but I hope you've enjoyed this presentation.